I'm saying a few things that's on my mind recently because I was getting my words out, talk about stuff. I'm not making music right now or playing video games because I don't have money to do that, but I'll start doing that back on. So basically, what I'm going to be talking about is the idea of basically why I think that basically I was sad or basically wanting to be losing control, or basically the loss of control, or felt the way I felt about, well, basically of the loss of control. Why I felt sad was because the loss of control is basically something that someone can't accept because that makes them sad or maybe happy, but basically it makes them feel some type of way that basically means that basically they can't change anything. And if they can't change anything, that means they can't change who they can become. And that means nothing or whatever they are, what they are in the situation in. Also, they think that also thinking that basically you basically means no, thinking you should try to understand stuff so that basically you can understand what basically it is that basically is nothing, but the only reason they're trying to understand is to hold on to something that it was actually something they can hold on to instead of losing the grasp of what they can't change. um nothing is this. So yeah, and then nothing. Well, nothing is doing nothing. Or just nothing in general. But I mean, wait, why did I say that? Nothing is doing nothing in general. Nothing is just doing nothing and just not changing anything. But when you understand these things or try to change things, basically when you try to change things, you basically change you kind of change who you kind of change who you kind of change who you kind of change your view, and then basically you can make a difference by understanding your control and change what you need to do, that basically you need to change that change where basically it makes something where you can change where it basically has a meaning, or you have accepted that basically you can move on and do what you needed to afterwards. Afterwards, basically, this is the question of basically why life is meaningful, because in life we can't change anything, because basically people have purpose when they do things and basically take control of their lives. But life is meaningful because basically it's the idea to create things, because God created people to basically exist in the first place, like basically like Adam and Eve and so on. They basically created them like Adam and Eve and stuff. When Adam and Eve was created, they eat the fruit of good and evil, which basically fruit of good and evil, which was the fruit of good and evil, which was basically they knew what bad and good was. But this makes me think that basically doing bad things isn't bad, because he told them that basically they could he couldn't do that, and they understood that basically that brought the idea of to that he that brought God to create something new, of basically saying that man can create sin, and sin is a form of death that can be reborn or die in the forms of badness, and stuff like that. But basically, even if basically they weren't created by humans, humans can choose what's good and bad, because when they can choose what's good and bad, they can choose for themselves what basically they are as a person, because that's what God given them for their own free will of what they can do for their lives. Because God created us to teach us how to be a good, I don't know, human, like a good dog or a good pet or a good son. Basically, they teach you how to basically do good, so that basically one day you can either or you can take their place, or you can either be part of their family and be someone who supports them. Um, um, But the thing is that basically if we were God, we could create anything we wanted. And basically, if we were to create anything we wanted, to understand that the life existence is to do what they did was basically to understand what we're doing for ourselves. If we understand what we're doing for ourselves, for others, or ourselves, then basically we can understand how we can basically and why we are basically doing things. So the point is to question why and what we're doing so we can actually start making action and to do actions. And to do actions is actually how to change what someone needs to do and also look at basically what is good and bad about them and stuff like that. Um yeah. But also it's a form of understanding because when someone understands something, someone could understand something and not use that knowledge to basically understand it because they didn't get the experience. While someone else can basically get the knowledge or experience to get wiser and understand it more clearly. And also basically if someone doesn't know what they're talking about while talking, then basically that means that basically they didn't understand the knowledge in the first place, so they need to do some rethinking on what they need to be doing. But if you don't understand, it's not good to always find a way to basically question what you're doing. You should basically start where basically you're doing something new, and that basically you can start anew and be like reborn or do good, where you can serve the people that you're supposed to serve or serve what you're supposed to be doing, where basically you can serve what they're doing and what you can do for serving something that basically gives a sense of meaning or purpose. That basically when you have doing stuff for a sense of purpose and meaning, that basically that's the purpose of doing it because you're doing it for a purpose and meaning, and that's why it's something. And that basically when you do something that's almost meaninglessly nothing, it's actually something. And when something seems like nothing, it's actually something. And when something is actually something, it becomes a way of life until it becomes nothing but the same thing that's already existing in your world or lifestyle. So yeah, thank you for listening. I'm not going to say subscribe or comment. I mean, you could comment or watch another video, but you can watch the video before that, and maybe I'll get better at Photoshop or putting in Reels to basically do good at photos. Thank you. Bye. And I feel like this was pointless because it's not like I want to do this all the time, unless I do. But honestly, I want to play video games and do more things because I've been really bored not bored, but I've been doing meaningless stuff for the time, and it's not like it's not like it's a bad thing to do not the things. And people are supposed to do good and not bad because if someone does good, that means good things happen. And if someone does bad, that means that basically they fell into the badness of being bad. So when they fell in the bad, that means they do not pass and then they get forgotten. And when they get forgotten, they actually become what is actually something where someone else is better, and when the other people are passing, that means more people will pass with better scores until it levels up to another thing, and those people will see those too, which is interesting. Now I'm gonna end the video here. Thank you for watching one more time. Please, if you can like and subscribe, maybe leave a comment, and maybe watch another video, and maybe we'll get better at editing videos. Thank you. Bye. Maybe I'll have another conversation on YouTube.